So, concerning dogma, which I've been talking about a bit recently in Italian and in English, um, one of the concessions that I made, and I think it has to be made, is that as atheists will claim that Christianity is dogmatic, sometimes they just mean that belief in um, a creator is a dogma. You see. This is pure dogma. They will claim it's just based on um, ancient writings, and there's no further evidence for it. Well, I don't think that's true at all, but I would like to address the matter. You see, a claim the claim that is made is that while religious people or Christians, I suppose they'll make it against any religion really, are basing their beliefs on pure dogma. The science side of things are not, because, and this is the get out clause that is used, I think, they will claim science is, we don't know all the answers to exactly how everything came to be, but research is ongoing. So science has this dynamic and interactive dimension, which is further proof of the fact that it is the way that we should be looking at things, in the attempt to understand. We can't pretend to understand everything, but we're getting there. This is the kind of hopeful understanding of the, I suppose, the atheist people who've thought about it, because I think a lot of atheists don't really think deeply about it at all. But I think this would be the sort of answer that is given. Whereas the religious people, well, we just read the Bible and we take it at its face value, and we're not probably not very bright or heaven knows what. Mind you, of course, I mean, I'm not, certainly if it's me that's in the firing line, I don't claim to be very bright, but there are certainly, I mean, in history, if we look, I mean, most great, even scientists were actually Christians in the olden days. Some very clever, the cleverest, I would say, of men and women have been Christians through the ages. The brightest, or considered to be the brightest, as it were. So that doesn't really stand up to scrutiny, but whatever. But the reason that I take issue with this, you see, is that the claim that the scientific people there, it's a question of, there's no dogma really, it's just research. This isn't true, because when you start looking at this quite closely, concepts like evolution, for example, are extremely dogmatic. There are certain basic tenets that you have to accept, even though when you start looking into them really quite closely, they are very flimsy and indeed provably false. I would say provably false. It's quite a new idea, and there's been all sorts of fraud has been perpetrated to try to give support to these to the idea that life is constantly evolving and has evolved, through millions or billions of years, from very simple forms into more complex forms, like me, and far more complex forms than me. That idea, I mean, that idea itself is dogma, actually, when you start to really analyze the scientific support for it. And they, of course, they are researching. There'll be scientists researching based on this idea, but the idea is fundamental. If you don't believe that idea, if you're going to claim that creation is the source of everything, then really you're not going to get very far in the university system with a fellowship, a research fellowship or anything. It's just not the way that it's going to happen. So that's one particular dogma. There are others. I mean, cosmology is the other one. I am, I suppose I would describe it as a biblical cosmology believer, but the expression that is used popularly is flat Earth. I don't believe at all in the heliocentric model of the universe. I think it really doesn't. Again, it doesn't stand up to scientific scrutiny, actually. And there are many people who've shown this, and yet we are just, we're not allowed to say it, of course, because it brings down the whole um, edifice of universities and particularly space agencies, which stand at the very apex of the world economic system, um, plying their power through the universities and just general indoctrination. There is great dogma in this. You're just not allowed to question it. You can explore the universe to find new planets. You'll get plenty of funds for that. But if your starting point is, well, we live in an enclosed system covered by a firmament, and the stars are lights, pulsating lights, rather than being habitable planets. The moon also is a light and not a place where you can go and walk around on it. I mean, these are ideas which they're just beyond the pale, and you're not allowed to speak of them. But a great deal of research has occurred really since the whole idea of heliocentrism came to light. There are many scientists who opposed it, but their voice has been silenced because it was conducive for the ruling class to pursue their agenda, and the agenda had to have a big space universe. You see, without a big space universe, also evolution doesn't work. The whole idea that life could have come about spontaneously really doesn't hold up if we live in a snow globe, as it were. If we live in an enclosed universe, there's no conceivable way that it could have occurred by spinning bodies crashing into one another and creating this supposed Big Bang event. And many areas of science, when you start looking into them, I mean, geology is another one, where, the claims of, how rocks are formed and the millennia and so on and so forth, they are dogmas. As long as you have, you take the starting point, and if you're there's very little space for, say, a Christian paleontologist in the university system. You either believe that the narrative, the mainstream narrative that you are told, but if you want to start researching it independently, you can just forget about that professorship. You're not going to get anywhere. So I think it needs to be said that the accusation of dogma, really, it's once you start slinging mud, then mud tends to stick to you. If I make myself clear. So yeah, there is a fundamental belief in the Bible that there is a creator God. It can be described perhaps differently, but I mean, this is one of the very basic tenets. And I suppose any religious view will have something of that nature. That there is some, I suppose the New Age people will call it some sort of a force or something like that. But the New Age crowd, they tend to gel rather nicely with the science people. They don't want to, they don't like to advertise it, but they're really singing from the same hymn sheet. especially latterly with all the interest in waveforms and frequencies and dark matter and quantum energy and all these things, which are really, again, a question of faith. It's like dark matter. The universe is composed of so much dark matter. Well, I mean, that's just a question of faith, actually. I mean, I'm sure you can find a mathematical formula that will show you that. But it's not as though you can go in the garden and get some and bring it inside and study it now, is it? So really, it's not the claim of dogma from that point of view is just not valid, because it can be given straight back. And yet people don't realize that, because they think science is somehow, because it's ongoing research, and that these people, all they want to do is find the truth. And I'm sure that's many people who are in that community feel that way. But we need to see, we need to be able to question that all the premises, you see, and you're not allowed to. You're really not allowed to, because once you start questioning many of the claims of modern science, I mean, they just fall flat on their face. The existence of black holes and all these sorts of things. I mean, they're just hypothetical mathematical constructs. Invisible black holes in space, which are photographed by flying telescopes. I mean, really. Anyway, that's just my few thoughts on the matter of dogma. Closing it up, I think. All the best, and God bless everybody this morning. Miserable day here in Merry Albion. God bless.